People in our own backyards are hurting. There are insecurities around food, economics, mental health, access to justice, healthcare, and our society continues to become more divisive. But there is hope. Right here in Chicagoland, there are people and organizations who are on the front lines, working to bring about positive and transformative change. Each week, we're going to meet some of these agents of change and examine how they are spurring innovative ideas and finding solutions to push our society forward in a more just direction. I'm Sufyan Sohel, and this is Change Agents.
Good evening. Autism spectrum disorder is a neurological and developmental disorder that affects how people interact with others, communicate, learn, and behave. Although autism can be diagnosed at any age, it is described as a developmental disorder because symptoms generally appear in the first 2 years of life. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 1 in 44 children in the United States is on the autism spectrum. But in the 1980s, only 1 in 2,500 were identified as having autism. The CDC also reports that Black and Brown communities, a demographic known to face hurdles in the diagnosis and treatment of autism, are much less likely to be identified with the conditions. And researchers at Boston University found that Black children are 5 times less likely to receive early intervention services than white children, due to part to racial bias and cultural stigma. Their families struggle to find answers and different ways to support their children and often feel isolated and helpless due to their inability to find the information and services that they and their children may need. My first guest tonight founded a nonprofit organization that supports families in underserved communities who've been impacted by autism. As of late last year, her organization has provided programming and guidance to more than 4,000 families in the Chicago area. I am so thrilled to welcome a 2022 CNN hero, founder and CEO of The Answer Incorporated, Ms. Debra Vines.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I am so happy to be here.
So thank you for joining us. I shared a bunch of statistics, a little background on autism, but please help me and the viewers just understand, 1, what autism is, and 2, some of the challenges that our communities are facing.
Oh, wow, that's such a great question, especially with the challenges. But I like to give the, I guess you would say, the layman's term of the definition of autism. And I simply say that autism is a neurological disorder that impacts behavior and speech and so many other things, because the spectrum is so wide that I couldn't give you a concrete definition. Because when you see one person with autism that's high functioning, and then you see another person with autism that's low functioning, and then they come together and they have so many of the same characteristics. So it's one concrete definition for autism, but the spectrum is so big that you have to be around individuals with autism and take a deep dive into it to actually say, oh, that person is on the spectrum. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah. And, so many challenges go on in Black and Brown communities because of being under-resourced. But I must say, you stated that statistics were 1 in 44 right now, but they were 1 in 1,000 when I first became an autism mom.
Tell me a little bit about your own journey.
Okay.
You said when you became a mother of an autistic child, there was 1 in 1,000.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
It was very, I guess a word that I could use is alone. I felt alone, like I was in the world alone. I didn't have any friends that had children with any type of disability, let alone talk about autism, but any type of disability. So I was on this journey alone and having to find resources alone. My husband worked nights, and so it became very challenging in my own household that led me to a dark place. But when I came out of it, I decided that I want to help other families.
You say you felt alone. What were you struggling with? Like what?
Drug addiction.
Okay.
Drug addiction. And it's not just me. I'm going to say there's so many other families that are dealing with so many challenges because of having a child with a disability and ignoring it. Because we throw so much of ourselves into our children, and that's just not parents that have children with disabilities. That is moms, period. We just throw our entire being off. But when I found out Jason had autism, again, trying to find resources, I became very frustrated, very isolated. And instead of trying to find help for myself, I isolated and got so depressed that I ended up finding a refuge, and the refuge ended up being drugs. And that led me down the road for many years until I was blessed to be able to go to the Women's Treatment Center and get the help that I needed. And hence, I am right here, right now.
Well, we're glad you're here with us.
I am too.
Glad you got the help you needed. How old was your son when you found out when you learned that he...
Jason was 18 months old.
Okay.
I actually started seeing some signs before then because I do have an older son, Mark, who's 49 now. And he was totally different, just a latchkey kid, exceptional learner, totally opposite. Straight A student, and then you have a child totally different. So, but my oldest son was 13 when, and I think I was 29. So, yeah, and Jason's 35 now, so do the math. Yes, I'm 65. But yeah, but yeah, he you know, at that time I was 29 years old. Found out I was pregnant again after having a 13-year-old. So that was mind blowing alone by itself. I'm like, really, God? After 13 years old, my career was thriving. I was a thriving hairstylist. I was modeling, and my life just took a whole turn. And I think that's why the depression came in too, because I went from here to here. You know, being a person that was just footloose, fancy free. Here, my other son, me and my husband was living an incredible life, and I went from there to being on total bed rest. And then having Jason, thought everything was fine. You know, he was a preemie. So we knew it was going to be a few challenges. But the challenges that we were faced with, I never thought that I would live through that. But I tell you, it's been one of the most, getting past that hurdle, but actually seeing some of the things that Jason has overcome, because I just took a really deep dive into his life and trying to find everything that I could about autism, and not just about with him, but with other families that I started meeting, and seeing how I could make his life the best that it could be, because that's what we're supposed to do as parents.
100%.
Give our kids the best opportunity they can have. I don't treat him like he has a disability. I talk to him, even though he doesn't have reciprocal conversation. I talk to him all day long. He folds up his clothes. He makes his bed. He empties the garbage. He sweeps the floor. He has chores that I make him do. And the reason why I'm talking about this, because it's so important. We're not going to always be here as parents, right? And again, like I said, our job is to make our kids as productive as possible. Your parents, they groomed you, they sent you to college, they did everything, and now you're a great TV host. Jason is not going to be a TV host unless God just touches him with his mighty hands and the autism goes away. But I tell you, he's going to be something great. No, he's already something great, because his love, when he walks into a room, his love is so infectious. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. So I'm going to say right now, he has done something great. He has a mark. He is the face of Dance Incorporated. He has overcome so many milestones that we didn't think. He used to bite himself until he bled, headbutt himself, headbutt against the wall, scream all day long, and now he can sit through an entire TV show. Like I said, he has chores that he does at home. He doesn't have a lot of reciprocal conversation, but he's getting there. And I encourage the parents to teach your children the most that you can teach them and the best that you can do, so that when you're no longer here, they won't be burdens to other people, because that's when the abuse comes in. When somebody's getting on your nerve, not to say that you're going to abuse them because they're getting on your nerves, but that's when things happen, when they're not being conducive to what's supposed to go on at that time. So I encourage all the parents to, even if it's tough, even if they don't want to do it, teach them everything they need to know.
Thank you for sharing all that, and part of your story that's really just wonderful to hear, and your words that you are sharing with our viewers and with parents. Take me through, once you first identified that Jason had autism, and the questions that you may have had about, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to parent that?
Ooh. Now, you know, that was 35 years ago, so let me think. No, just kidding. But, you know, the first thing I said is, what is autism? The only thing I'd heard about autism is Rain Man. My son is a baby. Rain Man was an adult that knew how to count cards and knew how to count toothpicks and all these other things. So how am I going to get from 18 months to a grown man? What do I do in between time? Like I said, my husband worked nights, so he couldn't do a lot of input. We're going to different doctors and things like that. And again, no resources within my community. So I felt like, what am I supposed to do now? How do I get through this? So being the resourceful person that I am, we live next door to a computer store. And so I built myself a computer. I didn't know what I was doing. I bought a book, built a computer for dummies, and I bought this book and I started reading it. And so every time he would throw out a computer part, I put the computer together. And so I started just researching, and I still felt really, I guess you would say, despaired.
Okay.
I felt despaired, and I felt like, what am I supposed to do now? Because I had nowhere to go. Everybody that I talked to, that I had met at other meetings in Wilmette and other places, they had so much money that they could go to ABA therapy, and they can call therapists to their homes, or they can get together with their other girlfriends and meet at the Four Seasons and just have a good time and relax. But when I went home to a 2-bedroom apartment alone, just Jason and I. My other son was in college, and so the feeling is I don't know what to do next. You just keep going.
Do you think there are parents in Black and brown communities specifically who may never identify that their child may be on the spectrum?
I know it is. I know it is, and we've talked to multiple of them, and some of them are still in so much denial that they say, oh, they just bad. They just don't listen, or it's something else. You know, autism is, and let me just say this to the viewers, autism is not a death sentence. And every journey with autism is different. You know, some are the same, but a little different. You know, some families don't have to be concerned about scholastic or the cognitive ability of their child's brain as it relates to learning. Some of them do. Some of them have a lot of behavior problems, some of them don't. But when you come together with a parent that does understand what you're going through, it's quite refreshing.
This is so much wonderful
It's a lot.
knowledge. Yeah, no, and I'm thinking about it, and we're going to take a quick pause, and we'll be right back with some more Miss Debra Vines.
It's still honest, it's still thoughtful, and it's still definitely Chicago.
3, 2, 1.
Join me, Darius Hillman, for a brand new season of In the Arena, where we're bringing you compelling conversations with some of the most fascinating people our city has to offer. Right here on CAN TV 19, on cantv.org, and the new CAN TV Plus app.
Welcome back to Change Agents. With us tonight, we have Ms. Debra Vines, founder and executive director of The Answer, Inc. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And you just shared so much great information, but we left when you were talking about how so many families are in denial. In the break, someone had asked us to talk about some signs. How can parents and families identify when a child or family member is on the spectrum?
You know, so some of the main signs are speech delay. Not to say that your child, just because they speech delay, they're autistic. Toe tapping, fidgeting, they call it stimming, but if they just do the same thing all the time, headbutting, rocking, have to line things up, everything has to be, it's like an OCD thing. So if you see your kid doing some of the things that are just not normal, not to say they're going to be on the spectrum, but just go get them tested. Because, you know, a lot of our kids have learning disabilities, autism. You can see Down syndrome. That's a detectable. Cerebral palsy is detectable. But it's so many developmental and mental disorders that aren't detectable until you start seeing signs and symptoms. But when you see those signs and symptoms, don't wait. Because statistics have shown that in Black and brown communities, a lot of our kids aren't diagnosed until they're 8 years old.
Wow.
Because they're not going to the doctor. Even in Black and brown communities, we don't take our kids for physicals like we should. And for the ones that do, if it don't apply, let it fly. But the ones that don't, be more intentional about taking your kids to the doctor, because I promise you, there's so many therapies that are out now, the ABA therapy, speech therapy, behavior therapy, play therapy. So many different therapies are out now that not necessarily to say if your child has autism. Autism does not have a cure. But if they do have autism, they can get better. They can get better. It's so many people that are walking around with autism, driving, working, married, have children. Just because you're on the autism spectrum doesn't mean that you can't live life.
So let's talk about the Answer Incorporated.
Okay, my favorite subject.
Why you founded this organization.
Yes.
Tell us a little about the history of the organization and where you hope to see it go in the next couple of years.
Well, the Answer Incorporated was formed in 2007, and it started by my late husband, James, and I, because we did not have any resources within our community, and we knew that other families were going through the same thing. Never thought it would be where it is right now. Never, because I just want, being totally transparent, I wanted to meet some other parents that have children with disabilities. And we just want to come together and be able to share resources amongst each other. Unbeknownst to me, that I think that I was going to be the one finding the resources for them. But, you know, it actually worked out because I love our core parents. We have about maybe 15 core parents that just do so much, and they support each other, but we support hundreds of families throughout the year. And our mission statement is that we provide support, resources, education, recreation, advocacy, workforce development, and social skills, not just for families living with autism, but developmental and intellectual disabilities, because we don't want anyone to be left out. And every Saturday, we have an amazing program at the Broadview Park District at the Beverly Center on 25th Avenue. And we've actually had other programs at Lindop School, the preschool, and Michelle Clark in Chicago. But every Saturday, we host our Spectrum University, Music and Me, Spectrum Socialite, and Spectrum Social every Saturday. And it's from 10 to 2. And we hope to expand these programs in little, I'm not gonna say little because I never use the word little, in other venues across the city of Chicago. And that's our goal. And one of our goals is to have our own facility, which we're working on as well.
Wonderful.
To be able to house programs there, but we're still gonna have them in other facilities as well.
And you talked earlier about wanting to make it national. Talk a little about that.
Yes. Well, you know, we actually service families in other cities. Okay. They call us from all over the country. And every time someone calls us from over the country, I want to be able to say, we have an Answer Incorporated in Atlanta, or we have one in North Carolina, or we have one in Alaska. Call this number. And you know what? Just like the Arc of Illinois, the Arc is all over the country, and I want to acknowledge the Arc because they actually keep the disability community not just informed legislatively, but there's so many other things that they do as well. So shout out to the Arc of Illinois.
A common theme I've been hearing throughout the show and our tenure is that the challenges faced by so many people in our communities, especially Black, immigrant, brown communities, is one, they internalize the challenges, and they feel very isolated and alone, and they don't have resources or a community around how do we get through this challenge that we're facing. And what I'm hearing from you and I've read is that you built this community of people who are experiencing the same challenge to find solidarity, support, hold each other up as facing that. What drives you to keep doing this day after day?
When I look at the families that are actually using the work and thriving from it and actually helping someone else as well, is each one teach one. And that's what keeps me going. And then even just seeing the work of community coming together with other organizations that were working in silos, coming together in partnership. We have a great partnership with PLCCA, one of the largest comprehensive agencies in the Proviso Township, Lindop School District, multiple villages in the Proviso Township and City of Chicago. Shout out to Mayor Brandon Johnson. And the newest commissioner, shout out to Tara Stamps. We have great relationships with the legislators as well. So that makes me happy to know that when they call the Answer Incorporated, they have someone to call to send their constituents to. When families call and say, hey, I got a referral from my cousin that you guys can help me, and we actually can help them, that's what keeps me going. When CAN TV calls and say, let's talk about autism, let's go.
First of many conversations.
Yes.
If you could give advice about how we can support more of the autistic community, what would that advice be?
You know, it's so many ways you can support. First and foremost, financially. Secondly, volunteer. No. The first thing is learn about it. Learn about the disorder, because when we started in the infancy of our conversation, it's such a wide spectrum. And there are some bullet points that you can read about and say, okay, hey, I noticed a boy in the grocery store. I think he might be autistic or something like that. Learn about the disorder. Volunteer. Find an agency that really resonates with you. And be a part of the community, because it's a community. The disability community is so amazing, and they love so unconditionally. And that's one reason, I actually have an amazing son, but it's so many amazing Jasons, and I call them all my Jasons, because every family that we serve, sometimes the parents will call and say, talk to my baby because he won't listen to nobody but you, so I have so many babies, and to be the mama of so many babies and being able to be the sister of so many parents, fathers and mothers, it keeps me going.
Don't
you cry on me over there.
I'm so moved by this energy that you bring, this passion for your work, and I see in the circles and the worlds I'm in sometimes that people just don't want to even acknowledge truths that may be in front of them, but that they're just not exposed to.
It's the truth.
Right? And I'm glad and grateful that you joined us tonight to share your words, share your stories, and your really important work. And I just wish you the very best as you.
Thank you. Can I say this one thing before we sign off? I want to give the parents some encouragement.
Please.
But being in this life for 35 years and actually going through struggles to be able to get to where I am right now, the first thing I want to say is don't give up. You might just be frustrated about my child is not learning this fast enough. I don't have a life of my own anymore. I was even explaining to one of my friends, I said, I've been a parent and having to make decisions for Jason for 35 years. Sometimes I just get so frustrated, but then I go through the minute of frustration and it's over. But don't give up. And come to our gala September 9th.
September 9th, I will be there. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me. Kay, can I make that announcement about the gala before we go?
Please.
So the Answer Incorporated has programs every Saturday at the Beverly Center in Broadview, and our website is theanswerinc.org. We have our 16th annual Sweet 16 for Autism Gala coming up. It's going to be at the Doubletree in Oakbrook. Our entertainment for the evening is going to be Marquel Jordan, and we have a surprise celebrity guest. I can't say who it is, but I have to acknowledge our co-chairs, Nidra Joyner Cole, Latanya Matlock Brown, Tanika Sanders, and Marcella Holly.
Wonderful. I cannot wait.
And my board of directors.
And I just wish you the very absolute best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.
We'll be right back with this week's Change in Action.
I'm Govalta, host of the podcast 3 Questions With, a public affairs program elevating the voices and visibility of matters most important to the Hispanic Latino community by speaking with community and industry thought leaders on the social determinants of health and democracy. Join us Wednesdays at 7:30 in the evening via Channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app.
Tonight on our Change in Action segment, we have an organization working tirelessly to enhance the quality of life and expand local access to healthcare, education, and employment opportunities. We are so pleased to present to you the Chicago office of Easter Seals.
Easter Seals is America's largest nonprofit healthcare organization. We focus on providing services that are for early learners and developmental services, and then we also work to provide comprehensive autism and behavioral programs. The work we do through the Illinois Autism Partnership, we work to partner with school districts and residential facilities, as well as programs pretty much anywhere in the state of Illinois that provide supports to people with disabilities and specifically individuals with autism. We work really hard to partner with school districts to provide comprehensive supports for students with disabilities in their classrooms. Students with autism all have very specific individualized support needs, so we work to partner with teachers to provide them extensive training, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. We work really closely with teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, and anybody in the school district who supports those students in those specific classrooms. Our goal really is to go above and beyond for them. It's really impactful for both teachers, school districts, and us to see that when we provide everyone with the right supports and when teachers are using those evidence-based practices, they are able to support these students who have really intensive needs and have maybe different needs than a typical diverse learner. If you were to try and support the work of the Illinois Autism Partnership or Easter Seals, I would really encourage you to practice more inclusion in your daily life.
Thank you to Easter Seals for your service to our communities. I'm also very grateful to Debra for joining us tonight to share her story and her incredible work with me and with you. Dear viewers, thank you. I reflect back upon this year, the 28 wonderful episodes of learning about some of the biggest challenges facing Chicagoans. We learned about food insecurity and gender-based violence, reproductive rights, and the hate faced by so many of our communities. We learned about how our neighbors are struggling and the fear, isolation, and helplessness that so many face. But something wonderful happened. We also met dozens of incredible leaders and organizations who are striving to bring about positive change. Like Debra, they're committed to giving hope, to not giving up, and to providing tremendous resources, invaluable support, and boundless love to our fellow Chicagoans. American writer Audre Lorde wrote, "You do not have to be me in order for us to fight alongside each other. I do not have to be you to recognize that our wars are the same." My friends, what affects one of us affects all of us, and we each have the power to make a positive difference in the lives of others and to make our city, our neighborhoods, and our communities better. We can all be change agents. Thank you all for joining me on this journey and for giving me an opportunity to speak to you each and every week and to uplift the voices and the incredible work of Chicago's change agents. Let us all be change agents. I thank you. Much, much love. Be safe this summer, and I will see you next season.